goedemiddag allemaal. Voor degenen die mij nog niet kennen, dat is ongeveer 1/3 van deze zaal. Mijn naam is Diederik van Leeuwen. Ik ben werkzaam bij Rijksdienst ODI, dat is de O van ontwikkeling, de D van digitalisering en de I van, jawel, innovatie. En we hebben vandaag trouwens ook de nieuwe directeur innovatie in huis. Sanda, welkom, hartstikke goed. Dus alles wat jullie zeggen gaat rechtstreeks naar de directie van de I van innovatie. Dus het wordt allemaal tot een succesvol project gebracht. Ja, welkom. Straks gaat Gert zichzelf even voorstellen. Gert Staal, daar verzorg ik al 4 jaar samen de opleiding mee. En dat doe ik niet alleen, dat doen we met een steeds groter team. Maar wij zijn wel een beetje zo de initiators, misschien de start-ups. Hè? En we gaan nu naar de scale-up van founding fathers, mag je het ook noemen. We gaan van start-up naar scale-up. En dat zie je ook al in deze zaal. Want we hebben maar liefst 36 nieuwe deelnemers. We zijn ooit begonnen met een clubje van 20. En dit jaar gaan wij, zoals het nu uitziet, de 100ste deelnemer aan de opleiding ook verwelkomen. En certificaat uitreiken. En wij hebben dat vanochtend gedaan bij groep 4. Je krijgt ook, de rest van je leven ben je ook gelabeld. Dus je bent, dus de newbies hier zijn groep 5. Nou is er vanochtend iets misgegaan. En fouten maken mag, zeggen we altijd. En dat is aan onze kant misgegaan. Want er waren 3 deelnemers die geen certificaat hebben gekregen. Maar die hebben dus ook niet het applaus ontvangen wat daarbij hoort. En dat had ik me niet gerealiseerd. En ik werd daar ook terecht ook even op aangesproken van ja, dat is eigenlijk niet zo leuk. En ik vind, dat hoort ook bij innovatie, dat je je fouten dan herstelt. Dus ik wilde alsnog Linda, Ruud en Richard even naar voren vragen. Waar zijn Richard en Ruud? Waar zijn Richard en Ruud? Nou wil ik het goed maken, zijn ze er niet. Wat? Die zijn weg, die zijn gewoon weg.
En Willem.
Willem? Waar Willem ook nog? Die stond niet op mijn lijst. Nog een fout. Nou, weet je, we gaan het zo doen. Linda, jij staat gewoon garant voor alle fouten die ik gemaakt heb op dit gebied. En ik zal het ook helemaal naar mezelf toe trekken terwijl ik het niet was. Nou, wat vind je nou? En daar kunnen bestuurders nog wat van leren. Juist. Nou, maar gefeliciteerd Linda. En je had het heel goed gedaan. En de certificaten worden nagestuurd. Blijkbaar hebben we er 4 nodig. Oké, goed. Dan hebben we nog een hele speciale gast. En dat is eigenlijk waar een groot deel vanmiddag ook voor naar de SS Rotterdam komt. En dat is Bryan Cassady. En hij gaat zichzelf straks ook even voorstellen. En hij spreekt Engels, maar mind you, he understands Dutch very well. So, be careful. Oké, en Bryan was hier gisteren ook al, dus hij heeft ook al wat insights opgehaald. En zal dat ook verweven in zijn verhaal. Even heel kort voor het programma van vanmiddag. We hebben nu tot 2 uur een sessie entre nous, zoals wij hier zitten. Het wordt wel opgenomen. Als je echt niet in beeld wil, moet je dat even zeggen tegen de techniek. Maar jullie zitten eigenlijk allemaal een beetje van achter in de camera. Die opname, we gaan nog kijken wat we daarmee gaan doen. Dat wordt niet per se openbaar gemaakt, maar daar gaan we nog wel... dat kan misschien ook mooi opleidingsmateriaal zijn op een gegeven moment. Daarna hebben we even een half uur pauze, van 2 tot half 3. Dan komen er ongeveer naar verwachting een 40-tal additionele gasten bij. Dat zijn echt gasten die doen niet de opleiding. Die hebben zich echt ingeschreven via in november voor deze sessie. En we hebben ook online ongeveer een 100-tal deelnemers die zich hebben ingeschreven. En dat wordt dan gebroadcast. En dat gaan de heren van de techniek allemaal verzorgen. Dus die zitten daar achter het zwarte scherm. En er komen dan vragen binnen. Nou, ga ik dan een beetje moderaten. En dan gaan we ons opnieuw voorstellen, want ja, dat is dan even. En dan moeten jullie net zo enthousiast klappen en juichen en joelen als nu. Dus dat even voor nu. En dan kunnen we ook even nog een kopje koffie nemen en na de kennis maken. Iedereen met een roze stip ondertussen bekend. Dat zijn de nieuwe deelnemers. Dus je kunt elkaar herkennen aan de roze stip. En straks de deelnemers die niet meedoen aan de opleiding, die krijgen een gele stip, geloof ik. Hè? Oh, oranje. Oké, oranje. Maar evengoed natuurlijk heel leuk om daar ook kennis mee te maken. En ook om ze natuurlijk te vertellen wat een fantastische opleiding het is om te volgen. Ja, oké. Vragen zover? Alles duidelijk? Ja? Gaan we van start. Aan jou het woord, Gert. En heel veel plezier ook vanmiddag.
Goedemiddag allemaal. Voor de mensen die mij niet kennen, mijn naam is Gert Staal en ik ben in het dagelijks leven directeur-bestuurder. En ik ben tevens ook werkzaam bij een stichting die heet TIM Foundation, Total Innovation Management Foundation. En in die stichting ligt een maturity model waarover jullie de komende periode alles zullen gaan leren. Wat zeg je? Daar word je mee doodgegooid. En dat is maar goed ook, want het duurt een paar keer voordat het kwartje echt valt. Dat is echt... En kijk, de bedoeling is vooral om jullie te helpen op je eigen ontdekkingsreis als het gaat om innovatie en innovatiemanagement. Dat is, voor iedereen zal die reis anders zijn en we proberen jullie daarbij zoveel mogelijk te helpen. Voor mij, mijn achtergrond is, ik heb een jaar of 20 in het bedrijfsleven gewerkt bij een aantal grote uitgevers, onder andere Elsevier, Wolters Kluwer. Daarna heb ik de overstap gemaakt naar het publieke domein. Ik was eerst 5 jaar directeur van 9292, jullie waarschijnlijk wel bekend van de app. Volgens mij heeft de menigeen die hier wel op zijn mobiel staan. En daarna in het bibliotheekwezen gekropen. Ik heb ook een aantal jaren hier in Rotterdam gewerkt. Toen heb ik Diederik leren kennen. En toen hebben wij ook samen de Nederlandse versie van het model voor de Nederlandse overheid opgesteld, uitgewerkt, geschreven. En zijn we inderdaad 4 jaar geleden met de opleiding gestart. Niet wetende dat het in deze zaal zo zou eindigen, dus daar zijn we zelf ook nog steeds een beetje beduust van. Heel erg mooi. Ik vind het een hele mooie reis, ook voor ons. En daar wou ik het voor nu maar even bij laten. We leren waarschijnlijk elkaar wel iets beter kennen tijdens de opleiding. Ik wou zo dadelijk graag het woord geven aan Bryan. Bryan en ik kennen elkaar nog niet zo heel erg lang. We hebben elkaar vorig jaar leren kennen tijdens een, ik mag wel zeggen, zeer uitgebreide lunch in Antwerpen. Waarbij we echt 100 uit aan elkaar verteld hebben hoe we over innovatie dachten. Wat we daarin gemeenschappelijk hadden. Wat jij aan hele specifieke kennis kon inbrengen, met name over het gebied van AI. En ik heb vol bewondering en met open mond zitten luisteren. En ik wil jullie ook graag in het verhaal van Bryan, wil ik graag met jullie delen. So Bryan, a warm welcome to you. And the floor is yours, so to speak.
Goeiedag allemaal. Ik zal de presentatie niet doen in Nederlands, maar als je wilt vragen stellen in Nederlands, geen probleem. Mijn ex-vrouw is Belgisch, Vlaming. Dat wil zeggen, als je roepen heel luid, ik zal heel goed begrijpen. We're going to talk today about AI for innovation in government. We're going to talk about developing, this is really loud. Is it ringing for you? Developing foundational principles to guide the ethical and effective use of AI in government. Now, sometimes when you come to a presentation, you expect the speaker to give you everything. That's not the case today. In fact, I'm going to give you an introduction, and then I'm going to ask you guys to work. And I'm going to ask you to think about this problem and how we can solve it. First of all, there's a wake-up call around AI. AI is growing at amazing speed. I don't need to tell any of you that. But do you have an idea how quick it really is growing? It's growing not at a slow curve like social media. It's growing at a double the speed of social media, which was growing. It's a whole lot better than you think at doing a lot of things. And what you're going to see is some specific results. I'm going to show you, for example, how good it is at creating ideas, how good it is doing some other things. And the most important thing is to realize it is the worst today it's ever going to be. Everything it does today, it will do better in 3 months. Let me give you some numbers on AI and innovation. I use AI quite regularly now. One of the things I find is the most important thing, and the place that people get things wrong most often in an innovation program, is setting objectives. If you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answers. One of the things that we have as human beings, we always think that the questions in our mind are really clear. One of the things that AI can do is it can help you in developing your strategic plans by giving you positive and effective feedback. When we test the strategic plans that are written by AI versus you and me, they're typically twice as clear. People remember them better, they're easier to understand. The second one, which for me is a little bit disconcerting, and you'll see some facts on this, is about the ability for AI to create ideas. Ideas are the fuel of innovation. Now, one of the things that comes up there is you can say, well, of course, AI can create lots of ideas. But what I'm talking about here is not the ability for AI to create ideas, the number of ideas, but the quality of ideas. AI is able to create 5 to 7 times more top ideas. That's ideas per 100. The third thing that we can look at in terms of numbers, I run a couple large accelerator programs. One of the things that's hard about an accelerator program is people make a pitch at the end. One of the programs I run is with 400 startups. If you can imagine 400 startups with 40% making bad presentations, it's a really painful process. We've changed the way that these companies are making presentations to use AI in the process to make the presentation and to review the presentation. We've gone from a 40% fail rate to a 5% fail rate. This is the same as the first thing. It's about clarity. And you know, the thing that's there is AI doesn't write things exactly right, but it does make it clear. The last thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at something I do a lot of, which is sprints. And in a sprint, it's a time-based innovation program. Typically, we're able to generate 3 times as many go-to-market ideas in half the time. Who am I? Well, my name is Bryan Cassady. I'm a serial entrepreneur. A lot of people say that. I've done 11 companies. I've worked in lots of different countries. I have 8 exits along the way. About 10 years ago, somebody asked me to teach, and I said, seriously, who wants to teach? I started teaching, and I really enjoyed it. And what I saw was I was able to make a bigger impact teaching than I was at building companies. Because if I can teach 500 people to build companies, that's a lot more interesting than me building one more. Yeah. I work at a few leading universities. I've taught at Berkeley, I've taught at Stanford, London Business School, Solvay, KU Leuven, EDHEC. But I've made a change in my life. In the middle of the pandemic, I started teaching students abroad, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Malaysia, and these students want things. So I went and made a change in my life from teaching what I'll call the fortunate few to the motivated many. With the motivated many, I have a big target. I want to reach 1 million students by 2027. This number is out of date. I've actually reached 8,500 now this year. But at this rate, it's going to take me 120 years to reach my target. So, what am I going to do? Well, one of the things I do is I write. I've got a book out which is Cycles, which all of you will get a free copy, not a printed copy. You should buy the printed copy, but you'll get a free digital copy. I'm doing a version 2.0 of that book, which is all AI augmented. And so a lot of the stuff you'll see today is in that book. I do learn by doing courses, I do sprints, and I do research. I'm going to start with a question. How many of you are old enough to remember the debate in the classroom about bringing calculators into the classroom? This means you're old. AI is a little bit like the calculator. It's coming. It's not going to go away. The reality is, even if you tell students it's forbidden, they're still going to do their homework with the calculator. I was asking yesterday, how many of you are using AI? Almost everybody here raised their hand. How many of you are using it for your work? A lot of you raised your hand. How many of you are prohibited from using AI from your work? And how many of you still have your hand up? The reality is people are going to use it because it makes your life easier. It's not a question about what is the future of AI in work. AI and work are here to stay. You have 2 choices. You can react or you can lead. And I think almost every case that you want to do things, it's easier to lead than to react. So I'm going to have you. Now, my non-scientific study, which came up yesterday, I found 90% of you were using generative AI. That's kind of cool. That compares to the general population of 30% in the Netherlands. So you guys are way out in the head. 50% of you are using it at work. A lot of you are not supposed to, as compared to 15% of the general population. And 5% of you receive some sort of training. I think the last number is really sad. Because like any skill, you get better when you learn how to use it. And I think there's a lot to be learned about AI. Where's AI in the Dutch government? Here I just did a screenshot of something I saw this morning to show you how good AI can help you at doing things. So if you go to something called perplexity.ai, and I said, tell me about AI in the Dutch government. And it will start giving me all these links. It'll give me all these facts. And it'll give me links to a whole bunch of other stuff. So what it says is 40 of the 70 government organizations are using AI. AI is primarily used internally, not externally. There's lots of concerns about the future, and people don't know exactly where things are going. There's a footnote on the bottom here. There was a study that was done on the ethical usage of AI in government. 138 countries were measured in that study. Where do you think the Netherlands sits in the 138? Bottom quarter? I want you to raise your hands. Bottom quarter? Okay, 50th percentile. 75th percentile. 99th percentile. The top country in the world, according to the study, is the Netherlands. Yes, go the Netherlands. So we have a challenge which is there. If it's not approved, it's not allowed. What you need is guidelines on how to use AI. Good guidelines are built on two sides. One is facts, and the two is values. So what I'd like to give you a few facts. First, there's a myth. AI is great for creating original content. No, not really. It can generate an incredible amount of stuff, but frankly, you see it when you read it. You feel it when you read it. It's cringeworthy. I don't know, in Dutch, I don't know what the equivalent to delve is, but in English, you can always see if somebody took a text from ChatGPT, it's about delving into this. Myth number 2, AI can create high-quality content on its own. No. You have to ask the right questions. You have to point it in the right direction. Myth number 3 is AI is faster. No, it's not. You use it wrong, you are going to lose a lot of time. When you use it right, you will save a lot of time. But when you use it wrong, you're going to get tons and tons of pages. To give you an example, I'm going to show you a little bit later about how AI can create ideas. I can show you how in 15 minutes you can create approximately 2,000 ideas for an innovation challenge. And those ideas are good ideas. But how are you going to review them? There's lots of studies out there comparing AI versus humans. Now let's see if this works. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It does? Yes, it does. When you look at the quality of ideas, there's typically two sides of an idea. One is the value of the idea. AI is typically better than human beings at creating ideas of value. The reason being is AI is a prediction model, and because it's a prediction model, it's pretty good at predicting what people want. In terms of novelty, which is the newness of an idea, there's a small group of human beings out here that are still beating things. This study, for me, is really fantastic. And I need you to listen carefully when I go through it. It's a study that was done by the Harvard Business School and Boston Consulting Group. The Boston Consulting Group has some of the smartest human beings in the world. They take 750 of those smartest human beings and they divide them into two groups, the best half and the worst half. They gave them a creative task. And they said, look, I want you to do this alone, and I want you to do it with AI. In the best group, the top half, they got a 17% increase in quality. In the bottom half, ooh, it goes to there, here, it's over there. They got a 43%. That's important. But there's something else in this slide which is much more important. The fact that you can gain 1 day a week by using AI, or 2 days a week, is really important. Does anybody see something that's even more important on this slide? Yep. Yeah, you're good. You're reading this text. So what comes out here is not just the fact that it makes people better, but it makes people equally good. Your best and your worst people will come up to the same level. You can put together a team of anybody, and they'll be pretty good. By the way, a little sideline for you. If you want to do innovation, you want to do it effectively, I did a long study about group diversity, and showing that, in fact, if you take the best people in your organization against the average people in your organization, the best people always underperform. When you want groups to come together and you want to deliver innovation results, you need diversity. Now what you can do is you can take everybody, put them together, give them the tools, and get them to run. There's another part of this study which I think is cool, and they've done something different. Go ahead.
If you're talking about results,
Yes.
it doesn't matter what type of results you're talking about.
Of course it does. So if what we're trying to do is we're trying to generate meaningfully unique ideas, a diverse group will develop more ideas. If you're trying to bring ideas to market, a diverse group will bring ideas to market quicker.
How does that relate to governance?
How does it relate to governance?
Because we're talking about governance.
Well, you got a lot of variation in your organizations. You have good employees and you have bad employees. One of the things that you can do is you can now bring more people together to work on this creative thing called innovation. The less creative people are actually going to be able to build ideas better than they did before, and when you bring those people in, you will get better results than you did before. It's a more inclusive thing. By the way, one of the things I do a lot of times with companies is we run brainstorming sessions. And typically we'll divide the group into 2 different parts. And I will say, give me your unwanted toys. Give me the people that are uncreative in your group. And we'll see if we can do better than the other part. In 4 years, I've never lost. Not because I'm better, but because there's a difference in the creative people and the uncreative people. Ideas are built over time. Typically, the uncreative people have more stick-to-itiveness than the creative people. They see a bright light and go someplace else. What we're looking at here is the use of AI in a context where you're not looking to see if you get something right, but to see if you get something wrong. They took those same really clever consultants and gave them a task which they knew AI would get wrong. And they told those consultants, this is really important. The future of your career depends on this. I want you to solve this problem. There was the group that was trained with AI. They did the task. They got it right 60% of the time. And they're really convinced they were right. They took the other group that weren't trained on AI. They got it right 85% of the time. And they weren't as convinced as they were right. There is something really important to realize about AI, is when you ask it for an answer, it will always give you an answer. A lot of times the answer is wrong. And when the answer is wrong, it does a pretty good job of convincing you it's right. So what you have is when you use AI, it can do lots to get things better, but it can also help you get things wrong really fast. The boundary conditions, if you want to use AI effectively, you need three things. You need to know what you're talking about. Domain expertise. Secondly, you need methodology expertise if you want to use in the area of innovation. The stuff that Garrett is training you, the things that you've been learning here, you need to know something about what you want to do. And lastly, you need something around AI expertise. And AI expertise is realizing that there are ways to work with AI more effectively. Now it's almost time that I have you guys do some work. More than anything, you need some principles to move forward. Why do you need principles? You need ways to guide the way. You need to say what's right, what's wrong, because it's coming. And how do you build the future effectively? There's a lot of challenges there in terms of implementation of AI. There's risks, there's oversight, there's innovation, there's regulation, public affairs. I'm not going to go through this, but you know these things. What I'm going to ask you to do is to work in groups. Can you give me an idea where we are as far as time?
Almost 1:30.
We're just on time.
Yeah.
So what you guys are going to get is you're going to get 20 minutes. And I'm going to put you in groups. And what I'm going to ask you to do is three things. I'm going to give you a piece of paper which has some principles on the usage of AI. I would like you to update those principles. There are 7 written on the page. You can't have more than 7, which means if you want to add one, you have to eliminate one, or you have to merge. Why 7? Because people remember plus or minus 2 things around 7. Okay, 7's your limit. Second, I want you to explain to you why these are the right things. And then I want you to come up with one thing that you're willing to share with the group. Is the challenge clear?
I was wondering on the previous slide.
I don't know how to go back, so.
Principles. I was wondering about language and definitions, and is it included in principles, or is it there's no clear understanding in AI on fixed definitions on?
Yeah. So one of the things, actually, for example, there was a group yesterday who did a really good presentation. It was about the language of innovation. Actually, when you're talking about principles, you're defining what are you talking about? And I think that's a really good question because it defines what the subject is. There's a famous guy out, his name is Richard Thaler. He wrote a book called Nudge, and he made a bet that he can get a group to agree to anything if he's just allowed to write the agenda. So in fact, the way that you guide the discussion can lead you to different answers. Okay, so what I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you a piece of paper. On this piece of paper, you will have 7 principles. I will go through the 7 principles that we came up with. Principle number 1, AI is part of the future, so let's be proactive. It's not going away, Grandpa and Grandma. It is here. It has to have values in it. 3, AI is part of the team, AI is not the team. This is really important. The human in the loop has to be there. You don't outsource everything to AI, you have to work together with it. Transparent guardrails and control, you have to be open, you have to agree guardrails, you have to control step by step. Competency building is never more important than it's ever been than today. Yeah, no. Sorry about that. You remember those Boston Consulting Group consultants? These guys are really clever. They still get it wrong. AI convinces them that the wrong answer is the right answer. If you want to use it in your work, training you about the foundational domain expertise is going to be more important than ever before. You have to do training on how to use AI. If you want people to use it effectively, tell them how to use it. There are games. There are ways to ask questions. Testing accountability and oversight, sandboxing before rollout, establish clear accountability, oversight for AI actions and outcomes. What I found was interesting, we wrote this, and then we were here yesterday and I said, these look really, really similar to the innovation values that you've already agreed. public value, involves civilians, safety of technology, quality data, respect the law. Maybe your 7 principles should just be a copy-paste. And the advantage of that is they're already agreed. Okay. Second part of it is why these 7 principles. For me, it's the balance between doing things right and doing the right things. Doing the wrong thing right is not a very good idea. Doing the right thing wrong is not a very good idea. Got to do the right things right. It's about long term. It's a focus on leveraging AI for the long term. And there's transparency and integrity. It's right to be open and measure constantly. And the thing I would share, after I've talked about this was our talk, AI is not a one-time program. It's not something you just launch. AI is launched. AI is about the future of government, promising improvements across many areas. We are going to work differently, and we need to know how to get ready for that future today. And it's about continuous training, learning, and oversight. It's needed to make sure we get the most value. Okay. You can ask 2 questions.
Okay. Can you give an example of how to use it in your own work?
I'm going to give you in the second session some really clear things.
Okay.
But I think, for example, the biggest thing that's there is to make sure you're clear in terms of the question you're asking. There's a famous quote from Einstein where he's saying, look, if he had to solve a difficult challenge and his life depended on it, he would spend 55 minutes defining the problem, 5 minutes on the solution. The right way to use AI, first and foremost, is to use AI after you've defined the problem.
Okay. So first the analytics, then?
You as a human being
Okay.
define the problem. You might use AI to define the problem effectively. The second thing in terms of a rule of smart AI is to develop some tools that you use. Don't reinvent everything every time. So there's been clever people there before you. And the third thing I would look at is something which I'll call chain of thought. Just like if you're having a discussion with your wife, the first thing she tells you is not always right. You have to keep on going and keep on talking. It's the same thing with AI. Sorry, she would say the same about me. There's a really powerful way of using AI, which is called chain of thought, saying, look, you've given me some ideas. Help me improve those ideas. Other questions? Okay. So I'm going to propose that you put yourselves in groups. Could you guys help me distribute these? So normally there should be one for everybody here. Hopefully there's enough. So what I would like you to do is to get in groups of about 5 people. 5 people you like. Okay. Shh. Shh. Oh, fantastic. Okay, we've got 5 minutes to share some thoughts so that we can stick on the schedule that we have coming up. The next presentation is going to be a lot more about cool stuff that AI can do, and amazing stuff. But to use that amazing stuff, you need to have principles on how to use it. So what I'm going to ask is I'm going to have 3 groups make a 1 to 2 minute statement. What did you come up with as far as conclusions? I'm going to do this in the following way. I'm first going to look for volunteers. If there are no volunteers, I will call this woman. So if you want to save her, I see your friends have abandoned you. Okay, I did have 1 volunteer in the back, so I'm going to bring this in the back. So what I'm looking at is, what does this discussion teach you? Is it useful? I think it probably is, but I'd like your points of view and your one statement on how you would do this. So I've got my first guys in the back. I have to tell you, they've sort of cheated. They definitely used AI. And they said, do you really want us to go first? Because we're going to be so good, nobody's going to want to follow. So I'm setting the bar high.
Thank you.
En ik voorstel, je spreekt in het Nederlands. Ik zal begrijpen.
Ja, is het oké als ik het Nederlands praat? Ja, dat is wel ietsje soepeler zo na 2 dagen. Ja, ik denk dus dat we niet hebben vals gespeeld, maar dat we gewoon hele snelle leerlingen zijn. Namelijk, zorg dat AI bij jou in het team zit. Dat hebben we gedaan. Dus wat wij zouden willen voorstellen is, ik ga het toch even voorlezen. Ditch the training principle and include integrate public consultation and co-design. En daar zou ik graag nog aan willen toevoegen dat als je in het kader van het controleren van je algoritmes ooit nog eens een algoritme audit hebt. Ik heb hele kundige collega's die met verantwoorde AI bezig zijn. Dus tot zover de promo over de auditdienst Rijk verantwoorde AI. Wat we gedaan hebben is, we hebben een foto gemaakt van de 7 principes die aan ChatGPT gegeven. Vervolgens gevraagd, kom met 5 suggesties om het in het kader van de Nederlandse overheid om een verbetering door te voeren. Vervolgens hebben we daar als groepje over gediscussieerd. Wat vinden we nou van deze 5 suggesties? Ook in verhouding tot de 7 principes die er al staan. En toen kwamen we erop, dat trainingsprincipe, ja, het is belangrijk om te trainen en iedereen goed op te leiden. En tegelijkertijd, dit is echt de korte termijn. Als je een kind een iPhone geeft, dan kan hij dat sneller dan dat hij kan lezen of schrijven. Op een gegeven moment gaat dit voor iedereen zo intuïtief zijn. We gaan het dagelijks gebruiken. Dus de training gaat over de korte termijn. Wat als overheid, als we AI gaan gebruiken, veel belangrijker is, dat we dat echt integreren en daar samen het debat over voeren. Of zoals, en dan ga ik toch mijn speakbriefje erbij pakken. Of zoals ChatGPT als suggestie gaf, ik ga weer voorlezen. Set up online platforms or host public forums where citizens can provide feedback on proposed AI applications or offer input on issues like privacy and fairness. Nou, wij vonden dat een hele goede suggestie. En veel meer lange termijn en continu waardegericht dan het trainingsprincipe. Dus vandaar het ding wat wij dus willen meegeven is ditch the training principle and include integrate public consultation and co-design. Dank jullie wel.
And I noticed our very good group there stopped a little bit when his ChatGPT went out, but I found it was really good. Who wants to go second? Oh, you're going to go. Oh, you knew it was coming.
Ik werk volgens principe 1. Dus we moeten leiden. Niet reageren, maar leiden. Dat was het principe wat wij hadden uitgekozen. AI is part of the future, so let's be proactive. Nou, we waren het daar op zich mee eens, maar niet met de tekst daarachter. So we need to lead. En wij vonden, dat klinkt natuurlijk echt heel erg leuk, hè? Laten we voorop gaan. Maar toen dachten we, nee, dat is eigenlijk helemaal niet onze taak als overheid om daarin voorop te gaan. We zeiden, we staan er voor open, we willen het in banen leiden, we willen beschermen, we willen kritisch zijn, we willen dus vooral het open zijn. Maar het leiden, dat vonden we een beetje een te vergaand principe. En dit hebben wij trouwens helemaal zelf bedacht, zonder... Maar we kunnen het natuurlijk wel nog even langs ChatGPT gooien of die het daarmee eens is, maar ik verwacht van wel.
So if I was to summarize what you're saying, it's not about leading the future, but being open for the future and preparing for the future. I think that's a good balanced view. Guiding view. Okay, we got our last one. You ready? The best for the last.
Dankjewel. Ja, hij sluit heel mooi aan op wat Claudia net zei. Want wij hadden daar ook wat issues mee over in de lead zijn op het gebied van de techniek. Maar waar wij wel vonden dat wij de lead moeten pakken, zijn de richtlijnen hierop. Dat is onze taak als overheid. En dat zit bij het 4e principe. Transparency, guardrails en controls. Dus daar vonden wij dat we in de lead moesten zijn.
Okay.
Meer tijd heb je niet nodig.
Okay, that was the first part. The second part will be filled with lots of cool tools, lots of things that you can do in your daily work if you want to hide them. But you'll see some cool things about how AI is used. And we'll come back to the question here. And I'm going to try and do a summary of things at the end. We have to be pretty strict on the deadlines.
Yes, we are. Zo, welkom ook. We hebben ook nieuwe gasten die zijn binnengekomen. Zie je af en toe hier door de deur komen. Wij gaan met elkaar nu even een half uurtje pauze nemen, kopje koffie drinken. En dan gaan we strikt om 2:30 ook met de livestream verder. Dus precies, dus het verzoek is om uiterlijk 2:55 een stoel te hebben uitgezocht. Dank jullie wel en tot straks.